Good morning, Year 3. Happy 3rd of March and happy maths for today. We are going to start with a 5 a day, just like we have done in the past. You have got one printed out for you, hopefully, or you're doing it on the screen, which is absolutely fine too. Have a go at answering the 5 questions. Pause me while you do it and don't spend any more than 10 minutes, and then press play again and we can go over them together. Good luck. Okay, hope you managed to get on okay with that then. Let's have a look at some together. So let's start with this nice easy one here. 36 take away 8. Now there's lots of ways you could have done this. You could have counted back from 36 on your fingers, using 8 fingers, counted back, or you could use what you know about number. So what I would do is take away the 6 from 36. That leaves me with 30. And then I know I've got 2 more to take away because I had 8 to take away. So 30 take away 2 leaves me with 28. So 36 take away 8 is 28. And if you needed to check that, we can count back if you may have done it like this. So 36, 35, 34, 33, 32, 31, 30, 29, 28. So whatever way you did it, okay. Now, as we're learning to use our mental maths, it's really good to see if you can use what you know about number to help you do that in your head without having to use your fingers. Anyway, let's move on. Down here, let's try this one. Now, we did lots of work on multiplying by multiples of 10. So this one should be really easy because it's only by 10, which means we only have to add on a 0. So 77 multiplied by 10 is 770. Well done if you got that right. We did lots of practice on that last week. Give yourself a tick. Okay, let's go over to this one, which is also nice and easy. How many 10s are there in 44? How many 10s are in 44? Well, there are 4 10s in 44, which you can also write as 40. There we go. And I looked at my 10s column here. That's my 1s column. 4 10s or 40, whichever way you wrote that, you get yourself a tick. Well done. Okay, let's go down here to a little bit of a word problem. I have 24 socks. How many pairs do I have? That's a tricky one. So if I've got 24 individual socks, how many pairs? Now, how many socks go into a pair? Well done, 2 go into a pair. So I have to divide this by 2. Now, when we divide by 2, it is the same as halving it. Now, we haven't done any division work yet, so this was a bit of a challenge to see if you could do it. So it's 24 divided by 2. Now, divided by 2, just like I said, is the same as halving that number. So we could write it as half of 24. So you should have got there, you would have had 12 pairs of socks. And you can check it in reverse by doing 12 times 2, making 24. Well done if you got that right. It was a tricky one I threw in there to see if you could figure it out. Give yourself a tick if you got it right. Now, up here, we have done lots of work on money and giving change. So I'm hoping that you will have got this right. There are 2 ways you could have done it. I have a £2 coin and I spend £1.35 in the shop. How much change will I get? You could have used your written method of subtraction, a bit like this. £2 take away £1.35. Now, because there's lots of zeros, it makes it quite difficult because you can't use this 0, you can't use this 0. You're going to take from here. This becomes 1. This becomes 10. Still can't use this 0. So you cross this out and this becomes 9. And this now becomes 10, finally. So 10 take away 5 is 5. 9 take away 3 is 6. 1 take away 1 is 0. And I put my decimal point in line there, 0.65, which is the same as 65p. Now, for me, I think that this is the trickiest way of working that out. Remember that we can use our number line, and we could have popped on here 135p, because we know that £1.35 is the same as 135p, to 200p, because we know that 200 is the same. And I could have done my jumps here. So to the next 10, which is 140, would have been a jump of 5p. And then from 140 to 200, 140, 150, 160, 170, 180, 190, 200 gives me 60. So I get 60 and the 5, 65p. Now I've got the same answer there. You may not have shown any working out. You may have done it in your head, which is great too. But it's always good to show you working out to see what, so that we can see how you got your answer. But you could have done it like this. You could have done it like I've done it on a number line. 2 methods that we have shown you. Or you may have just done it in your head. 135, 145, 155, 165, 175, 185, 195 is 60, and add on 5 to get to 200. Whichever way you've got to your answer. If you got 65p, well done, give yourself a tick. And we're ready to move on. So today, children, we are going to continue using our multiplication theme. And yesterday you did some fantastic work revising the grid method to answer your multiplication sums. So we were really impressed with that. Today, we are going to use the same method to answer multiplication word problems. Now, before we begin that, I'm just going to go over something that you've learnt in school. Maybe touch base on this in year 2 as well. And we did cover it very briefly at the start of year 3 as well. And that is something called rucksack. Now, rucksack doesn't mean the bag we put on our back. It is a way of remembering the process you can do to answer a word problem. Okay, so rucksack, each letter in rucksack stands for something. And we call this an acronym. So it means that each letter in the word rucksack stands for something. It's quite a big posh English word that we use, acronym. So rucksack doesn't mean something, like I said, it's not the words that we use for putting something on our back. Each of these letters means something. And if you remember the word rucksack, it will, when you come across a word problem, it will remind you to take these steps to answer questions. So we've got R, which stands for read. So obviously it's very important if you've got a word problem that you read the word problem. That's the first thing you do. The U in rucksack is for underline. So once you've read the word problem, you get a pen and you underline any key information that you need to solve the problem. C stands for choose. So then you've got to choose, are you going to use addition for your word problem? Are you going to use take away? Are you going to use multiplication? Or are you going to use division? I'm going to put divide here because it's hard to show the symbol on here. You then have to choose which operation, we call these mathematical operations, you're going to use to solve your word problem. Just change the colour on that and I'll move those down to choose because that's what you've got to choose from, those 4 things. So then, once you've read it, you've underlined the key information and you've chosen your operation, you've then got to solve it. So you will have to solve it using a method you've been taught. So it might be column addition. It might be column subtraction. It might be using a number line. It might be using grid multiplication. It may be using a picture to help you to solve it. Whatever it is, whichever one of these you've chosen, you then solve your word problem. And then you have to answer. So you may just need to write down a number for your answer, or you may need to write it into a sentence. Once you've done that, your last thing is to check it. And it's really important, year 3, that we check our work over, because sometimes when we read something, which is right over here, and we start to record it, sometimes we write things down incorrectly because we just go ahead and then we don't go back and check that it's right. A bit like we did yesterday in our grid multiplication, and when we were doing our multiplying by multiples of 10, if you remember, we had to take off a 0 and then we had to add it back on again. It's always best to check at the end, did I make my answer 10 times bigger again after I made it 10 times smaller, and pop that 0 back on. So it's always good to double check your work. So when we're working through today's problems, I want you to always come back to this method of remembering rucksack. Read, underline, choose, solve, answer, and check. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through a few word problems with you. I'm going to use rucksack to help me, and then I'll show you what your task is for today. So let me just turn over. Here we go. So here is my first word problem. Now, if I'm referring to rucksack, I know I've got to read it first. So let me just read it to you. There are 63 Lego pieces in a box. Sophie has 5 boxes. How many pieces altogether? Okay, so interesting. So I've read it. I'm now going to underline it. Underline any key information that I think is important. So I think the number 63 is really important. I think 5 boxes is important, and in a box, because that's in a box, 1 box. So if it has 5 boxes. And then I think it's really important that I need to know all together, maybe how many as well. How many all together? There, I've underlined my key information. So I've read it, I've underlined it. What did I have to do next? Well done. I've got to choose which operation I'm going to use. And this week, it's quite easy because our theme is multiplication. Now, if I were doing this without knowing that, I may think, oh, I'm going to use addition to solve this, which is possible because we know that multiplication is the same as repeated addition. So I could do 63, add 63, add 63, add 63, add 63, 5 times. I could use addition, but is that the quickest way to solve this problem? I don't think so. We need to multiply, to times 63 times 5, or 5 times 63 to find my answer. And I've made life a little bit easy for you this week because you know that when you get to the choose part here of rucksack, well, actually you don't have to choose because we are working on multiplication this week. So it's already been chosen for you in this way. So I've got my multiplication. I am just going to, I don't think I can rub it out. Do I have a rubber? Oh, I do. Here we go. I'm going to rub out that add because I'm not doing add. I am doing multiplying. And look, if you look over here, I'd already actually put it on here as well. So I've just really quickly, with a ruler, drawn a grid because that's the way I'm going to work this out. So I just did 2 lines down and 1 line across because that's all I'm going to need. And then in here now, I'm going to partition my 2-digit number. So I'm going to do 60 and 3. This is the way I'm going to solve my word problem. And then I'm going to put 5 down here. 63 times 5, or 5 times 63. So let's just go back and check. I've read it, tick. I've underlined it, tick. I've chosen, tick. I'm about to solve it, ready to answer it. Okay, so let's solve it together. So let me think, what do I need to do? Okay, so I need to do 60 times 5. Well, I can't do 60 times 5. That's far too hard for me. So I'm going to make my 60 10 times smaller by doing 5 times 6 only. 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30. But it's not 30 because I made 60 10 times smaller. So I've got to make the answer 10 times bigger by putting a 0 back on. So 5 times 60 is 300. Now I'm going to do 5 times 3. 3, 6, 9, 12, 15. So I've done this part. What do I have to do now, year 3, to get my final answer? Well done. I have to add these 2 numbers together. So 300 add 15. Well done is 315. Now you could have done your column addition. If you couldn't work that out in your head, you could have done your column addition next to there just to help you to add it up. There, 5, 1, 3. great, but you should have been able to do that in your head. But just in case, you can have done that. So I've now solved it. I've now got to answer it. Now, when we're doing a word problem, children, it is okay just to write a number, but because it's a word problem, really your answer should have some words in it as well. So if I was going to answer this now, there are 63 Lego pieces in a box. Sophie has 5 boxes. How many pieces altogether? I would put there are 315 Lego pieces, excuse my spelling, pieces all together. There we go. So there is my answer. I'm going to change that to a different colour so that you know that that's my answer. Purple. There we go. There's my answer. There are 315 Lego pieces all together. So let's go back to rucksack and check. I've read it, I've underlined it, I chose, I solved it, I've now answered it. Give myself a tick for answering it. I'm now going to check it. So it's always good, even though you think you've got your answer, go back and check it. So it said 63. Did I do 63? 60 and 3? Yes. It said 5 boxes. Did I do 5? Yes. 6 times 5. 5, 10, 15, 20, 20. Yeah, 30. So that's 300. Putting the 0 back on. I definitely did that. 5 times 3. 5, 10, 15 is 15. Perfect. I've checked it and I'm happy with it. So I have completed my first word problem. So you can see the steps that I've taken to do all of those. Shall we try another one together? Okay, let me go back to my rucksack. So I've just rubbed out my ticks there that I had put on for that question. And let's move on to the next question together. Here we go. Get rid of that box. Along the street, oh, let me just check rucksack. So I've got to read it first. That's the most important. Read it first. Along the street, 4 houses had daffodils growing in their front garden. Oh, well, that happens all the time at the minute in the springtime. Each garden had 34. How many daffodils altogether? That's interesting. So I've read it. I'm now going to underline it with the key words that or numbers that are important. So I'm going to say that there are 4 houses. Each garden had 34. How many altogether? Now, I didn't need to underline daffodils. I didn't need to underline street or garden because it doesn't matter where they are. What's important is the numbers in the word problem and what it is I've got to find out. And obviously I've got to find out altogether. So I've read it, I've underlined it, and I've now got to choose. Like I said on the last question, it's easy this week because we know we are working on multiplication. So that is our choice. However, you may have gone through a thought process that I could add because multiplication is repeated, the same as repeated addition. So you may have decided, if we weren't working on multiplication, to do an addition because you could have done 34 and 34 and 34 and 34 4 times. Okay, so there's always another way of doing it, but we're going to go with multiplication because I think that that is the easiest way of solving it. So very quickly, I'm going to draw my grid a little bit wonkily. Wonkily? That's not a word. Wonky. 1, 2, oh, and again. Not that it matters because it is just my working out. And 1 across here. And then I'm going to put my times sign in the corner there because that's what I've chosen. So I've read it, I've underlined it, I've chosen it. I've now got to solve it using my method down here. So get my pen. I'm going to put 30 and 4 in here because I'm partitioning my 2-digit number. I'm going to put my 4 in here and now I've got to work it out. So 4 times 30, I can't do that. So let's do 4 times 3, making this 10 times smaller, which is 12. 4, 8, 12. But then I've got to make it 10 times bigger by putting my 0 back on, making it 120. Then I need to do 4 times 4. 4, 8, 12, 16. There we go. And now I have to find out those two numbers together. Now you could do this in your head, remember, or you can use your column addition to help you. 6, I'm sure you'd use a ruler a bit better than me. 2 and 1 is 3. 1 and nothing else is 1. 136 is what I get here in total. So how many daffodils altogether? So I've read it, I've underlined it, I've chosen my operation, I've solved it, now I've got to answer it. Now remember what I said, because it's a word problem, I'm going to answer it in words, using words. So how many daffodils altogether? There are 136 daffodils all together. There we go. And there's my answer. Now, I can't say that I'm finished yet, can I? Because I've got to just go back and check it all. So 4 was my single digit number. 34 was my partition 2-digit number. 4 times 3, 4, 8, 12. Add on 0, 120. 4 times 4 is 16. 20, 100. Yes, I'm happy that that is my answer. There are 136 daffodils altogether, and I have checked it over. There we go. So I've gone through all of the stages there of rucksack to remind me what I am doing. So what I want you to do now is have a little go of this for me. So here is the next question. I would like you to pause the video right now and use rucksack. Spend 5 to 10 minutes to see if you can read, underline. You don't have to underline it, but maybe pick them out because you haven't got it written down. Choose, which I've already done for you. Solve, answer, and check. So pause me, have a little go of this. You don't have to write it out, just do your solving on a scrap piece of paper. And when you're finished, press play and we'll check if you got it right. How did you get on year 3? I'm hoping that you have managed to solve our word problem. I'm going to go through it with you very quickly together. So let me read it first. Miss Brogan, Mrs. Davies and Mrs. Sher each received 26 notifications on Seesaw. How many notifications were there in total? That's a lot of notifications, isn't it? So there are 3 teachers here, Miss Brogan, Mrs. Davies and Mrs. Sher, 3 teachers, and we each received 26 notifications. So I've read it. I'm now going to underline any keywords. Each received 26. So there are 1, 2, 3. Each received 26. How many notifications were there in total? Okay, so I've underlined my keywords. I'm now going to choose, but I don't have to choose because I already told you. Although I could do 26 add 26 add 26 if I wanted to, but I'm not going to because I'm practicing my multiplication. I'm going to quickly draw a grid. Now, if you're drawing a grid year 3, you must use a ruler. And if you've got squared paper or your maths books are still available, please use your squares to help you to set it out really neatly. Put my time sign in there. So now let's solve it using the method we've been taught. So I'm going to put 20 in there and I'm going to put 8 in here. That's partitioning my 2-digit number. And then I'm going to put 3 here because each, 1, 2, 3, each. Oh, have I made a mistake? I think I have. Let me just go back. It's a good job. I was checking as I was going. It's not 28. It's 26. Well done if you spotted my mistake. 26. So I'm going to do 3 times 20, which I can't do. So I'm going to do 3 times 2, which is 6, and then add the 0 back on. That is 60. Then I'm going to do 3 times 6. 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, 18. There we go. And remember, you can do it in your column addition if you want to, or you can do it in your head, which is pretty straightforward for this one. Because 60 add 10 more is 70, and on the 8 is 78. Did you get 78? I hope so. So there were 78 notifications in total. So now when I write my answer, I'm not just going to write a number. It has to have some meaning. There were 78 notifications all together. There we go. And I've answered it. And I've now just got to double check it. 3 teachers, 20 and 6. 2 times 3 is 6, add on the 0 is 60, 6, 12, 18, add them together. I'm happy with that. I have checked my answer and I am happy that everything is where it needs to be. There we go. Did you get 78? And did you manage to write it out into a sentence rather than just a number? Remember, that is the stages that I expect you to take when you're doing your work today. So let me stop this share for now. And I'm going to share with you your work for today. So what you're going to do today is exactly what I have just done with you. So you have all got your own worksheet. So this is circles. Now it says spheres on here. That's because it was something we used last year. So just ignore that. But it's all saved in the folder for what you need. There are circles, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 for you to complete. Now, you don't have to write this out, but what we do expect you to do is underline on here, and then in your books or on your paper, write number 1 to show us how you solve it and your answer in a sentence. Okay? If you really want to do it on the sheet, you could do it on here. You're solving on here, but there's not a lot of room and it doesn't show us how you lay it out properly. So circles, you've got 5 to complete. Squares, just ignore the title there. I forgot to take that off, which is my fault. You have got 5 to complete, but your numbers are a bit different. And you've got a tricky one at the end to try and have a go at that's got a 3-digit number. So just be careful of that. Hexagons, ignore the title again. I'm sorry I didn't change them. You have got 5 to complete as well. Oh, excuse me. I don't know where my... where's that gone? You can probably still see it, but it's gone from mine. Yeah, you've got some 3-digit number ones in there as well to have a go at. So the same applies. You don't have to write this sentence out, this word problem, but in your books, we would expect to see you're working out and your answer is a sentence next to number 1. And then on the sheet, you can just underline like we did together. If you manage to get that finished, there is a little plenary or an extension for your work today, which is a problem-solving plenary. Okay, so it says use your grid method to help to see how close you can get to 100 using these digits once only in the multiplication. So I've done one to start you off, 32 times 4. So you do 32 times 4 and work out the answer here. See how close you can get to 100. Then try a different combination of these. So you could do 43 times 2 in this one. Mix them up, okay? But you can only use each number card once. So you can't do 33 or 44 or 22 because you can only use the number card once. And I've left you 6 spaces. So see which one, which sum gets you the closest to 100. And let me know so I can see which one you got. So that's your work for today, year 3. Quite a lot. I mean, the word problems are going to take you a bit of time. And then if you get onto this little problem solving as well, so you've got plenty to be getting on with. Remember to follow the rucksack method that we have gone over together, because it's really important that you keep going over those things when you're reading a word problem. Okay, so good luck, and I hope that you get on okay, and we look forward to seeing your work.